All right. Basically, what I've done is um, one of the issues that people were having in the linear visual control was the ability to actually modify the balloon tip and the label on the linear visual control. It was very difficult to do it. They had a JSON. They wouldn't know how to really approach it. They would have to actually have IBM help them, and the label was almost they couldn't really do it from the JSON. So what I did is basically gave them a UI under the organization so they can able to do that. So let me go through. So basically, how do you get there? Is you'll go to the organization application. In there, you'll see an action called Asset Options. The reason why I chose that was because there are already specific linear settings that can be configured there. So I figured that was the best place to put it. Of course, you have to have a linear license for the tree to be shown. The table should be shown. Right now, there are 7 defined layers that corresponds to the 7 that are available on a linear visual controller. And then as you twist off, you'll see the detail section, and you'll be able to modify the label and the balloon tip the way you want it to. Now, one of the things I want to make sure is not to be very elaborate. Do a lot of like coding in it. That's not the intent. Not at this release. And I'll show you some of the things they can do. Um, one of the benefits I did add to it, I was able to add an attribute tree. So, for example, if a linear object it's a defined relationship, that linear object. So you can bring up the tree and it'll show you the relationship from that object that you can add on your balloon tip. One of the things I did add is that a lot of people are familiar with the message template from IBM. I took that and I added extra things to it, like a special tags to do some functionality there, at least for what they had before. I'm trying to redo exactly what they had before and do it the same as through the UI. And one of the things I had to do was I had to create this special tag, and in this special tag, which you see up here, what the purpose of it, if all the attributes are successfully replaced with actual values, then that line would be returned back to be displayed on the balloon tip. If not, it goes to the second line. If these all attributes are filled successfully, then that it just goes from top to bottom. And if none of them fills it, then nothing gets put on. None between these brackets, nothing will be pushed onto the messaging, the balloon tip messaging. Uh, uh, like I said, how this works. If all the attributes are dots on the first line, I just repeated that to you, but that's basically that paragraph says what it just explained. And you'll see why this is beneficial. This is mostly beneficial because of specifications. The specifications, when you create one, it can be a numeric value, an alphanumeric value, or a table. And of course, they don't want to see all three. All they want to see in the balloon tip is whichever one is populated is the one they want to see. And I'll show you that in a minute. Continue on with the special tags is that sometimes one of the things I had trouble is I was debugging. I was getting really because I was playing with the functionality of the template, and you just have to be careful, even out of the box IBM. If you put like a bold between the dollar sign and the actual curly brackets, it won't work. You'll crash. So just be careful, and it's really a human fault because you're really doing something, putting kind of using the HTML tag through that what you see, what you get type of GUI interface, and you just have to be careful. But the view, if they do have any issues, they can click the view HTML source, and I'll show you where that is. But I think you guys know what it is, and you can see the HTML source of what is in there, and this is the correct approach of defining um, the balloon tip message. And a lot of it is just make sure the divs are set and make sure you don't have any special HTML characters between the tags, including the attribute tags. So I figure I'll put that in there so in case there's an issue, you can at least look at the tags through HTML source. There's a new property that I added because I didn't want to add a lot of things into the message and globaling table. And what I did is that, and that's and the original linear visual controller did the same, was that they leveraged the title name of the attribute, which is already globalized. But that there was no way to really do that within what was already done in the template, message template from IBM. So what I did is I added a new attribute called attribute title, and all it does is that it looks the same thing as the other one as you've seen before. But what I did is you just put the attribute title name here, and then you just tell me the attribute you want to get, and all this returns back is the actual globalized name of the title of this like the start measure attribute. For example, like if there was one above it, it'll just come back start measure, and that's English. And if it was any other languages, it would be different. So that's one property I added. Now, there's a special attributes for relationship. One of the things that they had before was they wanted only information to display if the parent asset is a source or if it was a target. So it was in the code. So what I did is I removed that code and tried to put it in the UI form. And the way I could do that was I used the special tags again. And instead, what they do now is that they have an extra parameter here. This attribute parent asset is source. Now, this is not an actual real attribute, and the code behind it already knows that. He's looking for this. So what this says is that in the code, he'll check if the asset is actually part of the source. And if it is, then this line will get printed. If not, then what happens is that, okay, no, the same rule applies. All the attributes were not populated, so it'll go to the next one. And then here it says parent asset is target, and then this one gets displayed if everything on here is found correctly. And this is only a special case for relationship only, just to have the same thing what they had before. Now they could do it through the UI. While I was debugging, I had issues debugging. I still have a little bit going through right now, but this helped me out a lot. And I kind of, what it did, it lets me do kind of leverage the special tags where I can use like a Boolean on any object attribute or its relationship and monitor it. And if that's set or a value that actually has a value in it, I say, okay, I want you to print this line if everything else is good. And let me see if I have an example. Here's an example. For example, like Roger was here, right? So what I did was I added an exclamation here in front of the attributes. So what it does, it says, okay, the object has a relationship to an asset, and the asset has an attribute that is calibration. And if this is a Boolean, I know that. So if this is set to yes, then I want you to print this. If it's not, then ignore this. I found it a little helpful for me to debug, and I figured it's already in the code, and I've used it quite a bit. It seems to be working. So maybe they can leverage it. Again, I don't want them to assume that they can do all these fancy stuff because that's not the intent of it. And that's it. And I'll show you that one towards the end. Now we'll go to okay, all right. All right, we'll go to the exact organization. So I navigate to the organization. I went to the asset options, and here are the 7 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, yeah, 7 layers. And they have the description on them. So ID, I hope you guys can help me if you want to rename these. That's what they are. So when I twist one of them, like the asset spec, this is what it looks like. You got the label here, which is basically a text form, and then you got the message template here, which is HTML base. So what I did here to explain here, it's the same principle. When a label come up, because this is a specification, so they could be numeric value, uh, alphanumeric route table, and so forth. And the last one is just put the description, and I'll show you what that is. So it'll go through one at a time, and if all these attributes filled, that's the one that gets displayed. Same thing here in the balloon tip message. And then I add other things like start and end measure. And let me just slowly go through, since I'm recording it. I just want to go through each one so you get to see another specification here. Now this is the relationship. We'll stop here for a second. Remember, this was a special case I tried to explain. So what happens here is the label, they want either the target to be named uh, the right, the label to be either the target asset num if it's the source, or the source asset num if it's the target. So again, it follows the same principle. These two has to be filled. And if they are, then it comes over here. Well, is it an asset? Is source? If it is, then that line gets pointed. Otherwise, it goes to the next line. And of course, the same principle is done here to the balloon tip. So it'll return one or none here. It'll return one or none here, and it'll return one or none here, and all the way down. And basically, there's nothing I added here other than to simulate what they had before, and this does that for them. Okay, next one's ticket. Very simple label description. That's all they want for the label. The others are pretty simple. Cool. Okay, cancel. And that is it basically in there. So when then as we go to assets and go to a linear I-95, you're not going to see anything new, especially those who's worked on this already. Sorry. So here's one, capital beltway. This is an alphanumeric value, and you see that's the only one that gets pushed there. And this one here is the first one. It has actually the alpha numeric value plus a measured attribute. So that one gets picked out. Now, at the very down here, the district office, it doesn't have a measured attribute. So you see that's the one that gets shown here. What happens if I didn't do that, you would see the actual attribute value. You would actually see like a $, open curly, the actual attribute name, close curly. That's how they do it in the normal messaging template. But I kind of removed that for them. And this one was the last one that I saw, that very last one. All it does is just gives you the description title here, because you see this one was never filled with any numeric value. That's this one all the way up here. District office, this one. See, nothing was ever filled. So I just put the name of the description. I mean, they could do whatever they want. I'm just trying to replicate what they did or what they already have. So they're all the same as we go through, just to prove that they all are exactly as they've seen as if it was done from the JSON, but now it has more power to it. Now, one of the things I had a defect. I saw a defect that issues about the actual how this is being displayed if one of the values were, for example, one of the let's go to work. I think, does it work? Yeah, let's try this one. Oh, that one doesn't twist. Let's go back to special. Okay. Let's say capital belt. One of the things that I wasn't aware of is that the measure could be empty. Like it's usually 0 here. I was just testing it. So what I did is I removed it. So what happened is in the defect says, well, if there's no value here and there's a value here, then what happens, right? So I need there's a defect because it just doesn't display right. But my point, what I'm trying to say is that when you look at the actual um, labeling, you'll see this. Where is it at? Oh, not work. Sorry. I think it was specs. Close that. That. Okay, especially capital Beltway. You see how the start measure has the actual attribute there? See, they say, well, I know there's no value in there. I put it in there, but I don't want to see this in my balloon tip. So an easy way to do that is to use that special template. I mean tags that I showed you. So we would come over here, and it was the asset spec we were looking at, and I think it was this one. So what I could do here is, because it's one liner itself, I don't have to have a separate line for this. So I'll just put pound curly bracket dash dash, then at the end here dash dash bracket curly, and that's it, and I could save it. Okay, so by doing those special tags, I could go back to the asset, and I might put this as a default, but I just saw that defect just recently, and I said, oh, maybe I should capture that also in the labels, in the balloon tips. But I mean, they could do it themselves too. Maybe they want to see it. I don't know. So we come down here, and now the capital beltway, as you can see, the start measure is not even being shown. So that's kind of the power I kind of gave for them to use. So if they wanted to see it or not see it. Now, the special case that I did, um, I could kind of do the same for this one, and I'll show you a better one, but let's go back. And what I'm referring to is that one that I use for debugging. Let's go back to organization. And I'll keep it the same one. Specifications. Let's do this one. Let's do pound. Say say needs calibration. Just for the heck of it. That. Oh, sorry. Before I did that. Come over here. You see, that's the actual object. So I'm going to look for the relationship asset here. And is calibration. Okay. Go back here. Put an exclamation here. And another one. I think it's that one. Come back here. Okay, that one's good. And I'm going to modify this one too. This one right here. I'm going to say I don't want you to display nothing if start measure is not even populated. So let's do that. I know a lot of you guys gets the gist of it, but I just want to just record it here. Put a pound here. All right, let's see if this works. Hopefully it works. Make sure I did everything correctly. Okay. Go back here. Asset. Specifications. All right, we work with Capital Boulevard. I made a mistake here. Very cool. I made a mistake. Start measure. I wonder how come I didn't do that. Let's go back. I just want to just make sure I didn't do something silly. Maybe it needs its own mind. Oh, I see it. There's my mistake. Curly brackets. And I see another one here. Sorry, it's my fault. See, I didn't even do the right tag. Cool. All right. That should work now. Sorry about that. Go back to asset. Human error. See, hopefully it works now. There it goes. Look at that. You see, the end measure didn't show because it saw that the start measure is not populated, so it won't show. Now it shows the needs calibrate shift work, which means that when I go to the asset here, right up here, and I see the calibration is set and the shift is has a value in it. If I take that one out, save it, this is calibration, and I go back to the specification, kind of slow here, like machine, and then click this. You see the calibration is not there now. Same thing with shift work. If I go back to shift over here, asset, and remove shift work and save it, go back to specifications, and see all of it is gone now. And if I come back up here and put start 0, file save, come down here, go over the Gateway Boulevard, start measures here, end measure 26 is there. So I gave them not a lot of power. I don't want them to start doing fancy stuff in there. That's not the intent. You know, there's no there's no multi-leveling tags you can use. I don't want that because then they'll get messy and they get very confused, especially for us if we need to troubleshoot it for them. So that's all I did. So I hope, and that's all there is to this. And just another thing, just be careful. For example, if you want to they need to be careful to come back and you go to organization, they want to change a color or something. They want to go here and maybe they want this first one. Oh, that's label, HTML only. They might want this one. Just got to be careful, the whole line, and say, okay, I want it maybe italic and color, I don't know, green. So that one would be the only one that turns color green. So if they save this and go back into assets, and specifications, go over here. See, that one's normal. but the for each one should be green and italic, which it is. So I gave them some, that stuff was already there, but they can do that. They just have to be careful of don't 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 break the tags apart. And that's it. And that's all I did there. I'm still working a little bit. I think I got most of the bugs out. But I have to go through and then I have to clean the code up a little bit before delivery. But one thing I did do that was in the artifact in the organization, I did created the code already to populate all the organization. It's a it's a DBC file that's all make done with updates, so all of them will have the defaults. Remember all the changes I did? This doesn't have any of them because it has its own information between that one and the other. So just that's another test issue, you guys. I'm sure you guys are going to validate. UK, same thing, has its own default. Same information, same default. Of course, the original one, North America, will have its own, what I changed before. There. So, okay, so that's cool. So let me just leave this here for a second so people can see in case they want to play with it, what I did. Good, that's good enough. Okay, what else did I do? Oh, the new. Also, when a new organization is created, one of the things that this behavior is throughout this application of all the actions. You have to actually kind of fill the organization, its name, and the basic stuff, and save it. Then everything on the actions will be filled accordingly. There are some templates in there, like I've gone, for example, asset options, right? You see the templates here, so is these. You see nothing is filled here, and I guess this is right out the attribute, right? But nothing else is filled until you save it. So if I come over here, it says org test 2, and I give it some base currency, I don't care. I don't know, peso. Item set, select value, item set 1, company, select value, company set 1, save it. Of course, it takes forever to save. All right, saved. Now when you go to the asset options, oops, you can see now that's this is populated. That's the behavior. And of course, this gets populated too. And there's other actions that does same thing. So I just don't want to make sure you understand that you kind of have to actually save the organization before everything gets populated. But so everything is set by, set by default. I didn't talk much about the label. Um, it behaves exactly the same as a template, but it's really just I don't want anything really fancy happening here. Just to use a special tag to choose what label you want on it. That's all. And again, it has its own little select values in case they don't know what they want to put there. And you could get a little fancy. You can have, put different information here. For example, I don't want them to say like, truck or I don't know, some kind of whatever they want to say there. It'll print it with it. Or they can use the new stuff that I did to check a box to see if that box is checked. And if it is, I want you to display this one instead of that one. And, you know, so forth. But I really, the label is supposed to be very simple. The reason why it even has this is because the original one had that. So it only displayed the values for what it's the layers for, like, 4 feet or alphanumeric value like capital or something like that. So that's how it selects which ones. But that's the extent of complexity. Again, the relationship is to, it's only just the label of the first one. Either it's put the asset number or the source num, depending on whether is a source or a target. So I think I got everything. Okay, let me show you one thing I want to show for troubleshooting thing. Yes, I didn't even bring that up. I apologize for it. Guess my machine runs pretty slow when I'm recording. I guess. Uh, just want to show you the databases. Okay, you want to. Okay, just want to get this on recording. I apologize, guys. Okay. All right. Go to Maximo tables. LBC. Here goes. These two databases here. This one here holds the default information that gets populated through each of the organization here. Most important is the CLOB. The info attribute template is the actually balloon tip messaging, and the label is what that is. And when you click on it, um, it has all the information that was populated in it. And then this one here, this other table actually has all the information of Eagle and UK and the new test one, test two, and the SA organizations here. Basically everything just copied here and you can modify, and this is what gets used. Okay, I believe that is it. Sorry it took a little too long. I thought it would have been a lot faster. I guess I just talked too much. But any questions, you guys?
Roger, this is Milton. This is the full label and balloon test. Balloon tip, the full template is documented in the spec.
Yes. Let me just look at it, so I don't have to guess. Where is it at? Oh, right here. Sorry. You mean the artifact? Is that what you mean, Milton? Let me stop the recording.
Yes,